The views expressed and opinions given by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Z-Talk Radio, its affiliates, or sponsors.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
The Warren Exchange with your hosts Al Warren and Julie Hughes.
Thanks for stopping by the Warren Exchange. I'm Al Warren. Tonight, Tim Swartz. Now, Tim is a Emmy Award-winning television producer and researcher of the weird and strange. For more than 20 years, Tim has investigated unusual phenomena such as UFOs, strange creatures, and ghostly occurrences. Many of the investigations have been featured in articles such as publications as Strange Magazine, UFO Universe, Covert Action, Alien and Angels, and others. So Tim Swartz has also written books, several books, on subjects like time travel, mind stalkers, secret black projects. It just goes on and on. He's also the editor of the Conspiracy Journal website and newsletter. And so we have a lot to talk about coming up right after this break.
Didn't see it coming, but it came in a can. Now my sweet son's braid into a man.
Mine too, and hey, we know just who to blame.
When our sons have fun with women and misbehave.
Old Spice, braid a man on my son.
Now he's kissing all the women and his chores aren't done.
He was just my little sweetie, tiny fingers, hands and feeties. Now he's touching, kissing, feeling all the women because Old Spice
braid a man on my son. Now he smells like a man, and they treat him like one.
Hey, Nick Cannon here. So of course we all know there's lots of talent in America. But unfortunately, there's something else we've got way too much of. Childhood hunger. 17 million kids struggle with it in this country. But here's the thing. This problem is entirely solvable. Seriously, we already produce more than enough healthy, nutritious food in this country to feed every single last one of those hungry kids. We just need a way to get it to them. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks is out there every day gathering surplus food to give hope to hungry kids and their families all across the country. But they need your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together we're Feeding America.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Don't me. Don't you forget about me.
I said I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. I said I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
And we'd like to welcome to the show Tim Swartz, and thank you for joining us.
Why, thank you very much. I'm really happy to be with you here today.
Well, let's see. Where do we start today? Let's start with first of all, let's tell the audience who you are and kind of what you get up to. Like, what do you do?
Oh, goodness gracious! That's there's a loaded question. Question. Yeah. Well, let's see. Well, as you said in your introduction, I'm Tim Swartz. I'm a Fortean writer, investigator. I've looked into everything from UFOs to monsters, ghost reports, conspiracies. What have you? An earlier incarnation, I spent over 20 years in television as a producer and videographer and journalist, and got to had some really unique opportunities to travel all over the world, not necessarily researching UFOs and ghosts and things like that, but I always took the opportunity when I went to different places to try to connect, with people who were involved in that kind of nefarious activities, and but then as time went by and I got older, and the television business, it became a little bit more difficult on my frail body, and I decided to concentrate more into the my writing and research. When I was in college, I actually helped support myself by writing articles for, say, like UFO magazines that were really popular at the time. UFO sightings, Saga's UFO report, magazines like that actually paid money for articles. Which it's hard to find a magazine that will pay, and it's hard to find a magazine anyway that deals with this kind of stuff. I think Fortean Times, maybe Fate magazine, and that's just about it. Yeah. So it's it was a good way to make a few bucks, even though I had to do it all on like an electric typewriter. Oh, well, yeah. Well, see, and that's when I got more involved in my television career, my writing along the Fortean stuff just kind of went to the wayside. But then somebody invented the word processor.
Oh my God!
Oh, that was a beautiful thing, and then incorporated them into computers, and that's what got me started all over again. Was now I had the ability to actually write again, and then quickly make repairs and corrections, which there were just so many. You didn't have to get the white out, and
modern science.
Yeah, it is. It's a beautiful thing, and so that started a new resurgence in my writings. I had continued, investigating and researching all of these subjects. But as for writing for magazines or books or anything like that, not so much.
Yeah. And so, what was your interest? Like, how did you get interested in that? Or like, do you believe in UFOs? Did you have an experience?
Well, how I got into it was, you ask a lot of people who are into this field, and they say, "Oh, right from the very beginning, I was interested in this stuff." And that wasn't the case with me. With me, it was somewhere along the lines I can't remember exactly the grade. It was in elementary school, and I mean, I was like your typical kid. I mean, I was born and raised in Indiana, so I was interested in like race cars, and the Indianapolis 500 and stuff like that. And one day in school, we used to get a thing called the Weekly Reader. It was put out by Scholastic Books, and it was like a conglomerate of, like, say, the news stories of that week. And our teacher always assigned to us, a particular story from that week's Weekly Reader. Then we had to, write a report on it, and then give an oral report in front of the class. Well, one day I got a story about UFO sightings that were going on in the country at that time. And I had no idea what UFOs were, didn't really care. So, I mean, I wrote my little essay, and then presented it in front of the class, and I thought that was it. Well, it wasn't. That I became known then as the flying saucer kid, or the flying saucer guy. I mean, you believe in Martians, make fun of me and stuff like that. And it's just like, I have no interest in this, but as time went by, and you know how kids are. I mean, they never let you forget this kind of stuff. I mean,
yeah.
10 grades later, people are, were still calling me this kind of stuff. But the funny thing about it is that a lot of people, they'd make fun of you to your face when everybody else was around. But then later, when when we were by ourselves, they'd come up to me and say, I mean, I don't believe in this kind of stuff, but I saw, or my family saw, and then they would tell me these, like they saw a UFO, or there was a ghost in their house, what have you. And that's what really got me interested in this stuff, was the fact that, and it continues to this day, that people will come to me. They have no interest in publicity. They don't want anybody else to know what has happened to them, but they want a sympathetic ear. They want to tell somebody what has happened to them, somebody that is not going to make fun of them, isn't going to laugh, and will at least confirm that they're not crazy, that what they've experienced other people have as well. And that's, to me, that is the most interesting part of all of this, is the fact that you have so many of these people. I would say that practically everybody at one time or another has had some kind of unusual experience. Most people will not want to talk about it. And, very few will ever try to seek any kind of publicity, and are afraid to admit that they've had such an experience. Because, well, I mean, as we well know, if you go and tell anybody, friends, family especially, most of the time you're going to be hit with ridicule. People are going to laugh at you. You go to, anytime you go to family gatherings, Thanksgiving, they're like, oh, tell everybody about the flying saucer that you saw. And it just never ends. So most people just keep this stuff to themselves, or they ignore what happened to them. Most people have no framework to place an unusual experience, into their daily lives. Most people have no idea about flying saucers or ghosts or, Bigfoot or whatever, with the exception of maybe what they've seen on television. And when they have an unusual experience, it's just they don't know how to categorize it in their mind, so they forget about it, or they try to explain it off. I didn't see great grandma Smith standing at the end of my bed that night. I must have been dreaming or something along those lines. And so the fact that they run into somebody, say like myself, who actively researches and investigates these kinds of things, and they can come to me and tell me, knowing that I'm not going to say, yeah, you're nuts, get out of here. you know, and that's it. You know, they can tell somebody, and then they can go about their life and not worry about it, not think that, you know, maybe that, you know, something has, you know, gone loose in their cerebellum somewhere, and, you know, they're slowly going nuts. They can go on with their lives and know that they're not that unusual, that other people have had similar experiences, and you know, just be happy.
Do you think that's a form of denial then? Like, you know, when you when a person's having an experience, or they've you know, saw a ghost, or do you think they're just really staying in denial then, that that's why they don't want to admit it, or is it just that they're totally scared of being laughed at?
Oh, you know, I think it's a little bit of both. You know, they're in denial, and you know, and they don't want to be laughed at. And when I say that they're in denial, I think it's like I said before. I think a large part of it is that they have no way to pigeonhole their experience. You know, I mean, the way our brains work, you know, I mean, you know this, everyone knows this, is that, you know, we have compartments basically in our brains that, you know, that we put our daily experiences into. Driving to work, almost got hit when somebody ran a red light. Okay, yeah, that goes in that compartment there. At work, boss yelled at me. You know, that goes in that compartment there. Driving to work, UFO came down and showed you know, a beam of light on the hood of my car and burnt little holes into it. Where are you going to put that? Yeah. There's no place for you know, for most people, you know, to put that. And so then it's just kind of like left loose, you know, just flapping around into your brain, and that's scary. That's really, really scary. You have most people have no prior experience to categorize something like that. And so you either ignore it, go into denial. Oh, it didn't happen. It was a helicopter, or, you know, or an airplane, or something like that, you know. Or you can obsess over it and drive yourself slowly crazy. Or you can try to find somebody that, you know, you can confide into, and hope that they won't think that, you know, you have a screw loose someplace.
Yeah, well, yeah, well, you know, I have a few loose, so. Why is it still so negative to talk about experiences? Like, it seems to be more acceptable now. Like, I mean, this is a lot of with TV and with ghosts, you know, ghost hunters and adventures and all those shows, and everything's kind of been a little bit more mainstream, and all the vampire shows. And but with UFOs, it's still sort of like, what I'm getting at, I guess, is that you could tell someone you heard voices or saw a ghost or do something, and it's not quite, it's more mainstream now. It's more acceptable. There's people running around. There's mediums. There's shows. It seems to be more mainstream. But UFOs, people are still. You say, "Oh, I think I saw a flying saucer or something," or they were, you know, taken and probed, and then people kind of go, "That person's a loon." You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yes.
Like, why is that one still lagging behind and still kind of getting a negative toward it? Do you think it's? What do you think? Just not, it hasn't been proven? There's still not enough TV shows on it, or what is it?
Well, with the UFO phenomena especially, there has been, I think, a concerted effort to induce the ridicule factor almost right from the very beginning. And this has come about from the military and the intelligence agencies. Very early on, you know, I mean, UFOs have been seen since there have been people walking on the earth. I mean, you know, our ancient ancestors saw strange things in the sky, but there was a huge uptick of UFO sightings, especially starting around June and July of 1947. And at first, the United States government and military, I mean, they were extremely worried because, well, first of all, they were afraid that possibly the Soviet Union had had a technology that we didn't have, and were using this technology to demonstrate their superiority by infiltrating our airspace. They were also worried, if it wasn't the Soviet Union, that possibly these the UFOs could be, say, like Nazi aircraft, that there were still Nazi enclaves somewhere, say in South America. And, I mean, this was shortly after the end of World War II, and, I mean, there were still Nazis running around all over the place, and the United States military was really afraid that they had some kind of technology that we didn't have, and they were, demonstrating that they were still around. And the idea that that UFOs could be extraterrestrial didn't come about until a little later, until like the very early 1950s. And with all of this, it had been decided that people who reported seeing these things, that first of all, there wasn't going to be really any acknowledgement by the military or the government. And second of all, they decided that rather than saying, yeah, we're looking into this, that they were going to use, especially the media, to start the laughter factor, as I call it. Only hayseeds, farmers, the uneducated, drunks, people like that are seeing the flying saucers. And that, this is something that we need to make fun of, to laugh about, because this could be something really serious. We don't know what it is. We know that there's something going on, that there's something flying around in our skies, and we can't control it. So rather than admitting that and scaring the hell out of everybody, instead, we're going to make fun of the people who see these things and diffuse the situation till we get a better grasp of what's going on. And that was such a successful campaign that it remains today, not so much as a dedicated program, being continued to be put out by, say, like the intelligence service or the military. It's just become ingrained that now it's just almost a natural response. Hey, I saw a flying saucer. Yeah, right. You're nuts. Well, and I'll give you a good example. Anytime that there is, say, like a UFO flap, which a UFO flap is a bunch of sightings in one general area, especially television, any television coverage of that is usually accompanied now by X-Files music. Yeah. I am so sick of that. Yeah. And a reporter will. It's almost a situation where they'll do, say, like, part of the story will be serious, and then they'll end by making a joke about the situation. And if you think about it, I mean, that's it's really an odd response, because if you saw. If eyewitnesses saw, say, like a Russian bomber flying over their community, you wouldn't make fun of that. You'd be scared to death, and everybody would be, would be running around, saying, "Why isn't our military doing something about it?" But you have an unidentified aircraft being seen, and it's just it's become a natural response to make fun of it. I'll tell you a beautiful example. It was in Colorado, and I can't remember the city. It may have been Colorado Springs, but don't quote me on that. And this happened maybe about 10 years ago. There was a bunch of daylight sightings of a cigar-shaped silver UFO over the city. People got pictures. People got videos of it. I mean, this thing was big and it was hanging low over the city. And nobody knew what it was. Well, one news report that I happened to see that very day, the reporter went out and instead of talking to, say, like the police or adults or anybody like that about what they saw, this reporter interviewed children about what they saw. And now later on that day, it was discovered that this was a man-made like a blimp. It was an advertising blimp that this man had invented, and it was remote controlled. And he was hoping to develop it to, almost like a drone, where it would like maybe drag a banner behind it or something like that. And he had lost control of it, and it had floated away. And it was a good sized thing. It was maybe about 20 feet long. It was big. But the initial response from this reporter was to ask children, about it. Oh, let's do this cutesy story. People saw this UFO, and we'll just talk to the children. It's like, where did that come from? And so that's what we're still having to deal with today when it comes when it comes to UFOs. Now, like you pointed out earlier. I think that we're at a great time when it comes to a paranormal and unusual phenomena, due to the fact of these television shows that are being produced. Now, face it, a lot of these shows aren't that well done, poorly researched, and badly developed. But at least they're getting that out there for people, to see and to consider that, that there is, a possibility that this kind of stuff is real, and I think ultimately that is going to benefit more than hinder. Because the poorly produced shows, they're always going to be there, and they'll fall to the wayside to the ones that really do their work and present this material in an accurate way.
Yeah, just unfortunately, they usually don't get the spotlight. It's usually the badly done ones that get the spotlight.
Oh, sure. Well, sensationalism always sells.
Yeah.
Don't never underestimate exploitation.
Yeah.
and being able to, garner ratings or things like that. And, you have to remember that these shows are made to sell commercials.
Right.
That's why they're out there. But I think the underlying meme is being developed to the point where most people now are getting the idea that that there's a good possibility that this stuff could be real, or at least needs to be properly researched and investigated.
All right, we're talking about the weird and strange, and our guest tonight, Tim Swartz. We'll be back right after this break.
Fillet of fenny snake in the cauldron, boil and bake. I have newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog, adder's fork and blindworm's sting, lizard's leg and howlet's wing, for a charm of powerful trouble, like hellbroth boil and bubble. This brew be ye only salvation from your favorite radio station.
You're listening to Z-Talk Radio Network.
Hey, Russell Wilson here, and I know how important exercise is.
It's essential. It's essential.
With Play 60, United Way and the NFL are helping kids stay active and play at least 60 minutes a day.
Healthy kids, healthy kids.
But what this place needs is you. To donate or volunteer, go to unitedway.org/play60 because great things happen when we live united.
Donate, donate.
Are you guys going to do that every time?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
With the UFOs, do you think people are also scared maybe that we're not at the top of the food chain? Do you think that sort of shakes people a little bit on the foundation?
I think it does some people. I think probably more the older generation may feel that way because, you look at kids now, or young adults, or that sort of thing. I mean, they have grown up with cartoons and television shows and just all kinds of mass and popular media that has introduced them to the idea that there is extraterrestrial life. Gosh, I mean, look at any cartoon that's out there now. I mean, there's just all kinds of ones that deal with people from other planets or creatures from other planets, or what have you. And I think that with most of the younger generation, if the president went on television today and said, yes, UFOs are real, they are extraterrestrial spacecraft, and that we are being visited by people from other planets, I think most of the kids would be like, well, I thought we already knew that. I think they would be surprised that this was big news. While the older generations and I think some people who are extremely religious may not take it as well, because there are a lot of people who believe that we are at the top of the food chain, not only on this planet but throughout the entire universe. That we were put here on Earth by God. And that's it. The rest of the universe is empty because we are the chosen species, so to speak. And if it comes out that we are just one planet out of billions with intelligent life on them, that would be difficult for a lot of people to handle. And I say some religious types, but there's also I think there is also a lot of scientists who would have a lot of trouble accepting that. Because of their teachings, the way that they were brought up and the way that they were taught. I think that the idea that there are extraterrestrial life, that there is extraterrestrial life, would be very difficult for them to handle. But then again, there are a lot of scientists also who are very willing to accept this reality, and but they're loath to admit it to their colleagues and peers. because face it, I mean that would be the death sentence for their career.
Yeah.
I personally, I know a number of physicists and scientists and of all kinds of all different calibers or disciplines that are very interested in the subject of UFOs, but they would never come forward and say write a paper on it or talk about it to their fellow scientists. It's the ridicule factor is just too great, and a lot of them would risk never finding work again.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's true. Everybody has to be guarded a little bit. You can ruin your reputation, right? I mean, it's and religion. Now, it hasn't really jumped on the UFO bandwagon. Like, I know, being in the business, it sure jumped on the paranormal, ghosts and stuff. There's a lot of Christian and religious people that are now on board with spirits and after death and ghosts and stuff, and they've turned it to where it works.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that hasn't really happened with UFOs, because that's, I guess they can't make it work, right?
Well, there have been some proclamations coming from, say, like the Catholic Church, especially individual bishops who have said that, as far as they're concerned, the Church has no problem with the reality of extraterrestrial beings. And they're able to cite different passages from the Bible that seem to show that God created intelligent life on other planets throughout the universe. I think, though, that some of the more fundamentalist churches would have more difficulty with this, and probably those of the Islamic faith would, especially some of the more extreme lines of Islam, would have a lot of problem accepting that. Though, ironically, I mean, they have no problem in believing in, say, like the jinn. Yeah. Which the jinn have been brought up a number of times as possibly the cause of the UFO phenomena. That we're not dealing with at least some cases of UFO and the creatures that are seen associated with UFO phenomena, that instead we're dealing with, say, like the jinn or other paranormal types of entities. I think that a lot of them would have no difficulty at all of accepting the fact that the jinn was responsible for the UFO phenomena than they would that there could be intelligent physical life on other planets. And it's and I think a lot of the Christian fundamentalists, it would be the same way. There's a whole sidearm of UFO research that deals with the idea that the UFO phenomena is actually of satanic origin. That it's the devil and demons in disguise. Right. Flying around trying to steal your soul, and believe by making you believe that they're extraterrestrials.
Yeah. Well, of course, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Oh well, you would be surprised of the people who believe that. I mean, myself and Timothy Green Beckley, we wrote a book called and the title always slips me here. It's all I can think of is The Devil Rides a Flying Saucer, but that's not it. But it's almost as good as that. I'll think of it in a minute. But I mean, it there's all kinds of really interesting reports out there of people who have had UFO experiences that aren't all lovey-dovey space brothers coming down here with spiritual messages ready to save us from ourselves and things like that. And of course Nick Redfern wrote a book, Final Conflict, that there was an Air Force panel that was brought together to originally research the whole UFO phenomena. And as the years went by, this panel became more and more convinced that the UFO phenomena was of satanic in origin, and that had nothing to do with extraterrestrials. And that their final conclusion was that the only way to fight these demonic beings was to turn the country, is to get rid of democracy and to turn the country into a extreme Old Testament theocracy, which that in itself is extremely frightening, rather than the UFO phenomena. The think that that there could be powerful people out there in the military and government who are thumping to turn our country into a theocracy in order to protect us from devils riding a flying saucer. I mean, that's
yeah. Well,
yeah.
Hey. What's next?
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
How do you feel about like Area 51? Did you have a thought on that?
It could very well be. I mean, okay, the whole Area 51 meme came about with the idea that there had been, an extraterrestrial craft that had crashed at Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, and that the parts had, what was left was originally taken to Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio, now Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and then eventually transferred to Area 51, which was a lot more secluded. And I don't know. I mean, I have yet to be entirely convinced that anybody has managed to get their hands onto a crashed physical flying saucer or UFO. I mean, there's been a lot of really good stories and some very interesting, evidence, and I'll put quotation marks around evidence, but, it's, to me, I mean, it's still really, really up in the air on whether or not that has really happened. I think more than likely that Area 51's, because it was becoming more and more apparent that there was a secret base out there in the Nevada desert. I mean, the Skylab astronauts had accidentally taken a picture of it, and the photograph accidentally got released by NASA. This was way back in the late 1970s. And I mean, more than likely the Soviets had already knew about it, from their satellite flyovers. So I think that somewhere along the line, somebody got the bright idea, to start putting out this idea through like a whisper campaign that they had crashed flying saucers there that were being tested, so that if anybody who lived in the immediate area or who happened to be out there at one point or another saw anything unusual flying in the sky, they'd say, "Hey, look, it's they're testing flying saucers," and then they'd be laughed at, and that would be it. Then everything else that any other news or reports that came out of there would be ridiculed, and that's been used before. I mean, that's a great way to cover up the testing of secret black project aircraft, is to insinuate that they're associated with flying saucers and extraterrestrials, and then once again that giggle factor comes to play. And then anything else is basically ignored. Unfortunately, with Area 51, that kind of backfired on them because then you started having, like tour buses going out there to the road as close as they possibly could, and people getting up on the nearby mountainside with these huge cameras with lenses trying to take pictures of the base. And so, I mean, I think that is probably a more likely scenario than there is, like actually, like crashed UFOs and bodies being kept there. I mean, if the government and the military does have that sort of stuff, they'd be dumb to keep it at that place now. There's just way too much publicity, with the place. I mean, they finally had to acknowledge that, yeah, there is, an Area 51. Now, I think that there has probably been and still, still ongoing, very exotic technology being tested and flown around out there, stuff that probably looks very closely like UFOs and operates very, under a similar capacity. I mean, I think that's very likely. Whether or not this stuff is based on crashed flying saucer technology, I mean, that's still up in the air.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I always say if there's people from other planets, who's to say that they're going to be friendly?
Oh, exactly.
I just there's just too many questions about that. I'm just not sure. How?
Well, I mean, I do think that that there is life, on other planets. I mean, the universe is extremely huge.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't even imagine how huge it is. I mean, and we've already discovered, I mean, within our own galaxy, stars with planets on them. So, I mean, I'd be really, really surprised if there wasn't intelligent life on other planets. And, I mean, that's. And there could be a good possibility that some of the UFO phenomena is extraterrestrial spacecrafts. But I think that there's a lot more going on than just extraterrestrial spacecraft. And in fact, I would be really disappointed if that's all it was.
Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. Yeah, I was thinking of the old shows from the 60s, My Favorite Martian and I Dream of Jeannie, and that's we're talking.
Right. Well, and once again, see, there is that meme that has perpetuated in popular culture for a number of years now, with that whole idea that there is extraterrestrial life. And it's like I said. I mean, I think most kids and young adults are very accepting of that idea and would be very surprised to find out that if like I said, if that announcement was made that yes, we have discovered extraterrestrial life. I mean, I think the idea would be like, didn't we already know that?
Yeah. I think it's kind of irrelevant to who you are and where you come from, but.
Yeah,
it's funny. And so now let's get into this, as in your new book, America's Strange and Supernatural. So what was the inspiration for that? Where did you come from for that to get that up?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I was a kid, after I got interested in this kind of stuff, you used to be able to go to the local drugstore, and they would have like a huge selection of paperback books that weren't all just like Harlequin romances. They actually would have they would actually have nonfiction books as well. And there was always these great books, like by people like Brad Steiger, Warren Smith, and they always had these great covers that they would have like maybe 4 drawings on them, and they would have titles like the world's greatest ghost stories, or supernatural mysteries, or tales from the beyond, that sort of thing. And then they'd have like illustrations of, say, like Bigfoot or ghosts or things like that. And these books would be filled. They'd be like more than a dozen chapters, and each chapter would just be, say, like a couple of pages, with an individual story. About all this stuff. I mean, each book, depending on whether it dealt with ghosts or cryptids or a little bit of all of the above. I mean, they would just have these really almost sensationalistic types of stories, firsthand accounts, that sort of thing, and that was kind of my inspiration for this book. I mean, I always wanted to do something along the same lines. It's you don't see that kind of stuff anymore. I wanted to kind of have fun with it. I wanted to put out some of the best stories that I had run across, especially gleaned from my Conspiracy Journal newsletter, which I put out every week. And the newsletter, I mean, it's made up of the same kind of stuff. I mean, just news reports from all over the world of just whatever interests me. I mean, usually ghosts and monsters, and sometimes unusual science, that sort of thing. And so, I mean, I put a lot of this stuff, into this book. I mean, the book, it has stories about strange things that fall from the sky. I mean, we've all heard about fish and frogs, especially, seem to be the popular ones that fall with the rain a lot of times in some places. But there's been other stuff that people have seen falling from the sky. In Kentucky in the 19th century, over a pretty wide, like a number of acre area, bits of meat fell from the sky. Chunks and blood and things like that. And people saw it coming from the sky, and they found it like up high in the trees and on top of roofs and draped over fences. And but where did it come from? Candy. There was reports in California of candy falling from the sky. Just unusual rocks. Rocks is a popular one. Not meteorites either. I mean, just a lot of times it looks like just like gravel. People will see gravel fall from the sky, and nobody knows where it comes from or why. Now with say like the fish and frogs, and especially aquatic life. The scientists acknowledge that I mean this phenomena does happen, but they usually say that this stuff was picked up by, say, like a tornado that happened to go over a lake and suck all this stuff up, or a water spout. The funny thing about it is that these tornadoes are awfully selective. Because generally there's the things that fall from the sky, fish and frogs, they're usually one species. You don't see a mixture of, bluegills and carp and catfish or things like that. It's usually just one species, no mud or plants or anything like that. So it's I'd like
specific,
I'd like to know how these weather phenomena can be so selective on what they suck up and then drop back down again.
It's so specific. What do you think causing it? Then do you think there's someone actually doing something or some experiment going on, or?
I don't know. It's one of these things that just you can only just kind of like shrug your shoulders, and it's like our favorite saying is things that make you go, Charles Fort, who wrote a number of books back in the early 20th century, like Low, titles like that. He would speculate in these books, and I don't know how much he actually believed this kind of stuff, but but he would offer speculations that like maybe that there were, as he referred to them, as islands in the sky that these things were falling from. But I don't know. It's almost like there's maybe a hole that opens up in our reality, and this stuff falls through from another, time, space, or something. But once again, why is it so selective? Somebody, a biologist one time who was kind of interested in this stuff, he speculated that possibly that there is some kind of like mass teleportation of a species. And that's how, like species are able to get from one place to another on this planet. That just all of a sudden it's almost like a hive mind where, like all of these fish just kind of like get together for some reason and say, like, oh, we're going to go someplace else. And they disappear from one spot and appear in another. That explanation is as good as any as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it is odd though. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen this before. I have. You go and you say like you put it in, say like a reflective pond in your backyard. And you don't put anything in it, and not too long afterwards, fish are there. Where do they come from? I mean, usually not big fish. Usually it's just minnows.
Yeah.
But we put in a small pond in our yard one time, and a couple of weeks later there was minnows in there. I mean, and there's no lake or river or creek or anything nearby. And, the general consensus is like, oh, well, like, say, like birds had caught these and were flying overhead and dropped them. And it's like, wow, really?
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, I would love for somebody to really, do an in-depth investigation on why this happens, but it's not going to happen probably in my lifetime.
No, and it doesn't sell TV time, right? So
no. Well, and what scientist is going to like go to the university that they work for with this proposal? I want to study why like fish fall from the sky. They'd be laughed out, and they'd be pushing a broom at McDonald's the next day.
Well, there you go. And so now I love the I have to talk about the spontaneous human combustion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's a favorite. Everybody always asks me about that one.
Well, that's because that's been in popular since I can remember. There's always some sort of story about it, and someone just burning up out of nothing and all that, and how now what's the connection that you've got between ball lightning and the combustion?
Well, there is some connection that I have found. I mean, and I'm not the only one, and I can't say that this is the only explanation for spontaneous human combustion, but there has been some interesting research and some interesting stories that have been uncovered associated with the two. One of the cases happened, in fact, in a small town not too far away from where I lived. I mean, albeit this was in the late 19th century, but it was like a group of people sitting around outside of a house when a storm blew through, and they saw they referred to it as a fiery ball come down from the clouds, and it went in the window of this house. And there was one man inside the house, and they heard him, like scream. And when they went in there, this guy had been burnt to a crisp. I mean, almost to the point where he was like there was part of him in ashes, and there was from the window there was like a burn mark on the wood, around the window, across the carpet, and then it went up through the chimney. And some of the people who were still outside said that they saw this fiery ball emerge from the chimney, and then it disappeared with a loud bang. So I mean, I think that's a pretty good association that that this the ball lightning phenomena was responsible for for killing this guy and burning him up. And I should add that the human body is not an easy thing to burn. Well, I mean, you
have you tried?
No, not personally, but well, okay, I'll give you an example. With cremation, a crematorium goes at it goes up to around 4,000 degrees in order to burn the human body, and even then, that is not enough to completely reduce the human body to ashes. After the burning is done, the remnants, and there's still quite a few remnants, have to be put through like a crusher to reduce then everything into a powder. But with spontaneous human combustion, you find people who have been burnt literally to ashes. There may be, say, like a foot or a hand remaining because, like the person would drop and, their extremities would be, like away from their body. But everything else had been burnt completely to ashes, which under, like normal circumstances, say somebody fell asleep in their chair smoking a cigarette, dropped the cigarette on them, and then it slowly slowly burnt them, over the night. There is not, I don't care, what some of these people say, there is not enough fuel, no matter how fat a person is, in their body to reduce them to ashes in that short period of time. And as well, one of the strange things about spontaneous human combustion is that the fire seems to be localized with the body. Their clothes may be burned up along with them, but say like if they were sitting in a chair, the chair may be scorched, but it's not burnt. Things around them that would be highly combustible aren't burnt. Maybe some plastic had melted, but other than that, everything else is fine. I mean, you would think that if a human body would burn so fiercely that it would be reduced to ashes, it would take down the rest of the house with them. That never happens. Firemen will come in, they'll find the person that's just nothing but ashes, and the rest of the house is basically fine. There may be some smoke damage, but that's just about it. There was one case, this elderly man, he used to be a doctor, and they found him in his bathroom, and the floor underneath him had burnt as well, and what was left of him fell into the basement. But that was basically it. I mean, everything else in the bathroom, the toilet paper was fine. Nothing else had burnt. It was just the flooring that was underneath him that burnt. And I mean, he was burnt. I mean, he was just ashes. I think his foot and his shoe remained, and that was it.
That must have been some spicy Mexican food.
Well, it used to be accepted that it was something along those lines. I mean, yeah, we'll joke about that, but it used to be thought that maybe like indigestion, build up gas, into your body, and so instead of burping or farting, you'd instead cats for some reason start burning. Or if you drank too much, that was a popular one. That if you were an alcoholic, that eventually your body tissues just end up infused with alcohol over time, and that something would just start you burning like that.
That's hard. All right, we're talking about the weird and strange, and our guest tonight, Tim Swartz. We'll be back right after this break.
At understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues designed to help you help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything. Brought to you by understood.org and the Ad Council.
Man, do I love card night. You ready, boys? You got a king?
Go, fish dad!
Oh, come on! This is WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Time, why you punish me like a wave crashing into the shore? You wash away my dreams. Time, why you walk away like a friend went somewhere to go? You left me crying. Can you teach me about tomorrow and all the pain and sorrow running free? 'Cause tomorrow's just another day, and I don't believe in time.
I want you to make a check on all the women here and see if any of them look or even act suspicious.
You also have written about the kind of other unknown monsters, other than, let's say, Bigfoot and things like that. I'd like to get into that. What have you come across?
Well, I think one of my favorite ones, and this is one that I've been asked about quite a bit, is the screaming kangaroos. You know, just that name alone, you know, garners a lot of interest in people. But all across the United States, there have been some really fascinating reports of creatures that seem to, I mean, they superficially resemble kangaroos. I think that when they're seen, that's the only thing that most people can go to when they see these, is that, well, you know, it jumped and looked somewhat like a kangaroo. But especially, gosh, well, it was like Kentucky and Tennessee in the 1930s. There was an outbreak of livestock deaths and mutilations on these isolated farms, and the farmers, I mean, they would hear this thing screaming in the woods, and it wasn't like anything that they had ever heard before. I mean, and I mean, you know, we're talking about people. I mean, they're well aware of their environment. They know the creatures, you know, the coyotes and bobcats, and you know, maybe even like bears and cougars still at that time. And this was something that they had never run across before, and the way their livestock was being killed was unlike, the normal predators. And when people did catch a glimpse of this thing, I mean, it was about the size of, like a large kangaroo. It jumped like a kangaroo, but its head was larger when they saw it, and it did have, like arms like a kangaroo, but no kangaroo that I ever have ever heard of is a carnivore, or with a lot of these mutilations. I mean, it's rather than eating the meat, they would tear the throats out of, say, like goats and chickens especially, and then there wouldn't be any blood left. It was almost like vampires, sounding all very much like the chupacabra reports that came out of Puerto Rico, especially in the 1990s. But I mean, here we have something that was seen all over the Midwest, and even as far out as, say, like New Mexico and the Four Points area. Like I said, especially in the 1930s and 40s. And then we had there was a resurgence of what seemed to be just like regular kangaroo sightings in the 1970s up in Wisconsin, Chicago. There's a couple of Chicago policemen who actually saw this kangaroo jumping down the street, and they cornered it in an alley and were trying to grab it, but it started fighting back and screaming at him, and in a like a scream that they had never heard before, and it managed to get away. And once again, I mean, there was reports in these areas of unusual livestock deaths, but nobody actually, naturally in these kind of situations, nobody actually sees these things, like killing their livestock. It's kind of like death by association.
Wow, fun. And
oh yeah, very much so.
Any others that really stick out, or is that kind of like the most?
Well, you have also the devil monkeys, which has been seen, especially like around West Virginia and a lot of the Appalachian areas. And people report this thing. I mean, it looks a lot like a large baboon type of creature, though much bigger. I mean, almost the size of, say, like a small human being. And but something that, I mean, it's very aggressive. I mean, the devil monkey it is often seen on rural roads trying to attack people through their cars. And I mean, every community has stories similar to this. Like the lovers lanes monsters, as we often refer to them. Kids will go out and say that they've seen some type of unusual creature, or will tell these stories in order to scare their girlfriends, in order to get them a little bit closer to them. But a lot of the devil monkey sightings, I mean, they were seen by adults, police, other, I mean, people who, I mean, they have no reason to spin a tall story. And once again, I mean, all the stories are remarkably similar. I mean, they would be driving down the road, say like late at night or early in the morning, and all of a sudden this thing would just, like leap out of the forest and jump onto the car, or try to grab the people through their windows, or run alongside. That's another popular one with a lot of these unusual cryptids, and then and Bigfoot sightings as well. That these things will run alongside the car. The people driving the car, I mean, they'll be panicked and trying to go as fast as they can, but these things just keep right up with them, and it'll be like peering into the windows at them. And one of the things that's very similar with all of these creatures is that a majority of them have like these large, glowing red eyes, almost like bicycle reflectors. I mean, you remember as a kid, you used to have those round red bicycle reflectors, and a lot of these creatures have eyes very similar to that. Something that you wouldn't think that you would find on a physical creature. I mean, we've seen cats and dogs that you catch them in the headlights of your car. Their eyes will reflect back. But these creatures, the eyes almost seem to shine from within. That you're not seeing a reflection, that their eyes seem to be luminous all their own. Again, something you wouldn't expect to see with a physical creature.
Well, they're getting ready to have spontaneous combustion.
There you go. See, there's the connection.
Yeah. So when you were writing this book, did you change any of your views or beliefs, or did anything come of it that sort of altered the way you think?
It's nothing surprises me anymore. I always go into writing these books expecting to be surprised along the lines of, obviously these people are, like are trying to, spin a story, or, are pull a fast one on everyone. But I think the one thing that always surprises me is how similar these stories are from people who have no prior knowledge that this sort of stuff even exists or happens to other people, and how similar the stories are from different parts of, well, in this case, different parts of the country, but actually different parts of the globe. I mean, you can go any place in this country or in other countries and find almost exactly the same kind of reports coming out. And that's the one thing I think that always surprises me, because I'm always expecting to run across something that is just wildly different than any place else, and that generally doesn't happen. The stories are all very, very similar, and the creatures, while there may be some superficial differences, but the stories always seem to remain the same. The reports always seem to remain the same. I mean, it's the same way. We were talking about like the screaming monkeys and the devil, or screaming kangaroos and the devil monkeys. I mean, you go all across this country. There are some very fascinating stories of big birds being seen. And I mean, we're all familiar with eagles and buzzards and vultures and things like that. But I mean, people have seen birds with wingspans of 20 feet. I mean, that's a big bird.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're shocked that such a large creature can fly and get off the ground, first of all. But I mean, you go back and you find these stories stretch back, I mean, quite a ways into history, and they're almost the same as what people are seeing today. And to me, that's always, I mean, that's just, it's delightfully surprising.
Yeah, with the day of technology, but with the cell phones, smartphones, iPads, and that, do you think we're going to start seeing things captured on film, or film, that's a primitive word nowadays, but on on phones and digital medias?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, we already are seeing some more and more of these things being captured on their telephones. The one thing, and I mean, this has gone back. I mean, for ever since people have had cameras to begin with. The one thing that happens with a lot of people is that they end up being so surprised at what they're seeing that they don't even think about picking up their phone to take a picture, or their camera to take a picture, and it's only after the fact. And you have to remember that a lot of these situations happen in a matter of seconds, and then it's done. And a lot of people, I mean, they're so shocked at what they're seeing that just they don't even think about trying to take a picture, and it's not until afterwards that they're like, "Oh, damn it." I could have taken a picture of that. But we have, I mean, UFOs especially. I mean, we've been seeing some really interesting UFO photographs being taken. But once again, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Nobody is going to believe a picture. I mean, people say, "Oh, well, that's an interesting picture, but you faked it. You photoshopped it, or or it's, something happened. It's not real." I'll give you a good example. There's a picture that's going around right now that was taken not too long ago in England. These 12-year-old girls were touring a castle, and this one girl used her iPhone to take a picture of her friend walking past this exhibit. Took 2 pictures, and afterwards, when they were looking at them, there was a picture of what appears to be an extremely tall ghost with with long, almost dreadlock hairs, wearing it looks like almost like a very dark purple dress, following the one girl, and then the picture taken, I mean, almost just a few seconds afterwards, shows nothing. I mean, it's an interesting picture, but it proves nothing. Unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking, because of modern times, everybody's, carrying the phone around and stuff, that nowadays they're taking pictures and filming and selfies and all that now. I mean, the older days, like back in my day before that, you didn't really carry your camera the same way you do your phone.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was thinking it's probably going to be better odds now than back then, because just a different circumstance, I think, with cameras as it is to cell phones.
Well, one thing I will tell you that you can, and you can look for this yourself. A lot of, I think, very compelling, say, like ghost photographs that are taken, with a camera or with phones, especially. I mean, it's like you said, there's more people with phones with cameras, and they'll take these selfies and not see anything until afterwards. But you will see, say, like somebody's taking a picture of a friend, and then afterwards there'll be an anomalous image on it. And a lot of times it'll be a figure that is almost like right behind the person who's having their picture taken, where you'll see just like a portion of their head or body. But just a small portion, like they're standing almost right behind the person, like peering to the side or off, off to the side of the camera or something like that. But I mean, the person who's having their pictures taken, their body almost obscures whatever it is that then appears in the photograph. You see a lot of those more than you would see, say, like a separate full-figured entity standing off to the side. Instead, like I said, you'll see this thing. It's almost directly behind the person whose picture is being taken, with just a small portion, usually the face, peeking off to the side of the person. And I see so many of those sort of pictures that I have to wonder if those aren't the more authentic, however you want to define that word, photographs of something unusual. And I yourself or those listening in the audience, go onto Google and look up ghost photographs and try to find images like that, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, near the end of your book there, of course, I want to talk, I love the prophecies. Kind of what prophecy, what do you think's in store for the U.S. or for the rest of the world now?
Oh, wow. There's been some very interesting predictions that have been made. Well, it's, prophecies of countries, I think, is almost as popular as, say, like religious prophecies, that you would read from the Bible or things like that. And, one of the things, and this is almost like a prophecy fulfilled, but I ran across a story that a Brazilian writer in 1926 wrote, and the rough translation is called "The Black President," subtitled "The American Roman," and it was published in Brazil but never in the United States. And it details a future election where a character named Jane looks into a machine called a futuroscope, and she sees a future where an African-American man will be elected president. And just the things that this person wrote in this book, I mean, they're just, very eerily similar to what actually happened with the with President Obama being elected. In the book, two Democrats, a black man and a white woman, would be running for election against a white Republican man, and that the final winner would be a black president. And some of the facts were really close. Besides that, let's see, what was it? It was the difference was that I guess in the novel the year was like 2228 when it actually happened, the year 2008. Let's see here. Some of the other things, the population of the United States, the amount of people voting, that sort of thing. I mean, that was really interesting. But you also have stories, say like I put in there the Hopi Indian prophecies, and the Hopis, they also, in the 1970s, they talked an awful lot about the UFO phenomena, and that how some of their leaders were in communication with the entities that were flying the UFOs, and had received a number of interesting predictions that at that time came true. But like a lot of people who claim to have had contact with UFOs and their occupants who were given prophecies, the initial prophecies and predictions come true, but then as they become more and more public about their predictions, then the predictions stop coming true, and they're basically discredited. So now the Hopis said that in their prophecies that the United States will be destroyed by atomic bombs and radioactivity, and that only the Hopis and their homeland will be preserved as an oasis in which the refugees will be able to flee to. And they say that it's the materialistic people who seek to make shelters, and that those who have peace in their hearts, that will be their shelter for the coming cataclysm. And that they said that the World War III will be started by the people who first received the light: China, Russia, Palestine, India, and Africa. And that when the war finally comes to the United States, that the U.S. will be destroyed by, as they put it, gourds of ashes, which will fall to the ground, boiling the rivers and burning the earth, where no grass will grow for many years and causing disease that no medicine can cure. So nice, happy predictions there.
Yeah. Sounds like a good summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, when it comes to these kinds of predictions, I mean, they all tend to be fairly gruesome, to put it. There was a woman named Gail Smith who she's predicted that the United States will be attacked by Russia that will invade the East Coast, and China will invade the West Coast, and that the invasion will include missile attacks. She said that this will occur probably during a holiday, say like Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then to top it off, then this will be accompanied by a long-lasting earthquake that will break dams and cause rivers to flow in all kinds of different directions, and that there will be two more major quakes that not only will affect the United States but will shake the entire planet. And it won't be just the United States that will suffer from that, but the entire world, kind of insinuating that this will be God's punishment for the planet for invading the United States. And that's one of the things that that's included quite a bit in this section of the book is the idea, especially from some of our earlier leaders like George Washington, that that it was predestined, possibly God's will that the United States be formed, that we were almost like like the chosen people of the planet, and that it would be the United States mission to bring democracy and peace to the rest of the world, but that the rest of the world wouldn't be very accepting of this for quite a long period, and that our country will suffer its own tribulations because of this, but that ultimately peace will prevail, and that the rest of the world will follow kind of like the same direction that the United States is going. And I think that's one of the more encouraging aspects of some of these other predictions, is that the United States may not be perfect, and that we've made our mistakes and will make our mistakes in the future, but that ultimately we're heading in the right direction, that it's our destiny, both this country and the world, to live in a time of peace, and and that it'll become almost old fashioned for the senseless violence, especially what we're seeing today across so many different countries, that we'll get past that. That it'll be considered almost like how we consider racism today to be distasteful. We look at a lot of the older generations, who were brought up, thinking that they were superior over minority groups, and I think that the prevailing concept in this last section of the book is that there will be a time on this planet when violence and warfare will be considered just as distasteful, and that the United States will be the lantern bearer, so to speak, of this idea for the rest of the planet.
Well, that's hopeful. I've got a little cynical, I don't know, but we can all hope.
Yeah, I'm the same way. We, especially right now when we see, so much, evil and bloodshed, and especially, like religions, fighting religions, and people killing each other just because they live in this place, or their skin is a different color, or their religion is different, and I think that I think it's a hopeful idea that we can get past all of this at some point, that we can all develop as a species to accept the idea that really, we're all the same. That the differences that we are fighting over now are so superficial as just to be silly, and I do think that that will come to that time. It may not be soon, and there will more than likely be a lot more, unfortunately, bloodshed. But I think that ultimately down the road that we will hit that mark.
Well, I would hope so. I see it getting a better in some respects, for sure, but also the violence getting more extreme.
Yeah, it's it's more, back, a few decades ago, we had to worry more about country versus country warfare, and that has really greatly diminished. And now instead we're seeing more like factional fighting. Unfortunately though, with like social media and the almost instantaneous communication that we have across this planet, it's a lot more easier for these smaller groups to recruit members and incite violence. Especially with people who feel like that they're disenfranchised within their society. And I think that we'll probably see more of that as time goes by, rather than the larger countries in invading smaller countries, or the larger countries having it like an all out, say, like a atomic battle. I think instead we're going to see more and more of these like smaller groups inciting violence, and unfortunately that's going to be a lot more difficult to fight against, rather than say like World War II, where all you had to do is subdue a country and get rid of their leaders, and start again. And instead, you have these these smaller terrorist groups that it's going to be a lot more difficult to put a rein into a situation like that.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint.
It really is. Yeah.
All right, we're talking about the weird and strange, and our guest tonight, Tim Swartz. We'll be back right after this break.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
I am living on Channel Z.
You're listening to Z Talk Radio Network.
I am living on Channel Z.
You can listen to us anytime, anywhere now. Download our free app now for the iPhone and iPad. Look for the Warren Exchange or House of Mystery app at the Apple App Store today.
Your own experiences in the paranormal. What have you had personally that has influenced you to write in any of these books? Something like the real ghosts and restless spirits, haunted places, and things like that. Is there something that really you can talk about personally?
Well, sure. Yeah, I'm not afraid to talk about my own personal experiences. It's rather funny because a lot of people will ask me since I've written quite a bit, say like about the UFO phenomena, like what kind of UFO experiences that I've had, and I've had basically none.
No probing?
Nope, nothing. Well, not by UFOs at least. But
well, there's hope still.
There you go. I the only thing that I have ever seen that could even remotely come close to a UFO sighting is that I saw one night, putting the dog out, I saw a very bright red light up in the sky that just seemed to hang there. And, I'm very, very well familiar with all of, airplane landing lights and everything like that. And this was it looked almost like a red traffic light, a very bright red traffic light just hanging in the sky. And then it just blinked out. So, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I can't. It was unidentified to me, but whether or not it was anything unusual, it was a red light in the sky, and that's about all I can say about it. But now, when it comes to paranormal experiences, I've had a number of unusual experiences. Some of them rather small, and others. Not so much. I think that the one that had the most influence on me, and I've talked and written about this one quite a bit, was back in the 1980s. I used to work for a television station in Dayton, Ohio. And at the time, there was a poltergeist case that was going on in Columbus, Ohio. And it was getting a lot of national attention at the time, and in fact, myself and a reporter had gone to that house to do a story. Well, we got a tip from people who lived in Springfield, Ohio, which is just a little bit north of Dayton, that these people were having poltergeist activity as well, but they weren't interested. I mean, they didn't want any publicity or anything like that. So I contacted them, and I told them I was interested in this kind of stuff, and that I would be willing to come to their house and talk to them, but I wasn't going to go out there and do a news story on it or anything like that. But I asked them. I said, can I bring my television equipment with me and try to take some pictures and all that, and they agreed as long as, like I said, I didn't put it on the news. Now, this was an elderly couple, and they had recently been forced to adopt's not the right word, but they had brought in their grandchildren to live with them. Unfortunately, both of their parents had been put in jail. So rather than putting these children into the system and into foster home, the grandparents agreed to bring the boy and the girl, into the house with them. The girl was about 12, and the boy was 10, I think, is what it was. And shortly thereafter, these kids had come to live in their house. They started experiencing, just like the typical poltergeist activity. Furniture is moving around. There was like strange knocks and raps on the walls. Stuff would move from one place to the other, or just disappear. And naturally, I mean, this couple, I mean, they were pretty worried about it. So I went out there, and like I said, I took my television equipment with me, which was a field camera and a recorder. And this was in the days when we used 3/4 inch tapes, which was a pretty pretty big cassette tape, basically, that went into a deck that you wore. You know, it hung off of one shoulder, and then your camera, was on your other shoulder. It was connected with the cable, and both the camera and the deck had their own separate batteries. And then you had a belt pack of batteries that would run a light that was attached to the top of the camera. And everything was fully charged before I left, and I hadn't been in that house more than a couple of minutes when everything was dead. Every battery, the recorder battery, the camera battery, and the light battery, everything was dead. Now we're talking about these were NiCad batteries, nickel cadmium batteries, and it took a couple of hours to charge them, and they would last quite a while running this equipment, and they were dead in just a matter of a few minutes. Which that was the first thing that was really surprising. So when we were all sitting in the living room talking, and this is a small ranch house just out in the country, and surrounded by cornfields, and the kids were in their bedroom, which I could see them from the hallway from where I was seated. And all of a sudden, we heard a sound. It almost sounded like almost like a small boom. It's hard to describe, like maybe something had dropped onto the roof outside, and then from the middle of the ceiling, these rocks started to appear and fall to the floor, and they were small white rocks, like driveway rocks, maybe about an inch, in width. Probably limestone, and they would just appear just like maybe an inch or so underneath the ceiling and drop to the floor. And I was sitting right there watching. We all were. I mean, and this was a situation where we talked earlier about taking pictures of something unusual happening to them. If I had any equipment that was working at the time, I don't know if I would have thought about getting that stuff going, because I was so fascinated about what was going on. And maybe 5 or 6 of these rocks just appeared and dropped to the floor, and then it stopped. So I mean, I got up off the couch and walked over and scooped these rocks up. They were a little warm to the touch, but I mean, they didn't appear to be any different than anything, any other rock that you'd find out in the driveway. Well, I remembered there was a story by the late writer investigator Ivan T. Sanderson, where he had he experienced a very similar situation, except these rocks were being thrown at him in the night. So I took a magic marker and I marked these rocks with an X. And I went to the back door, and they had a small backyard with a cornfield in the back. And so I took these rocks and I chucked them all into this cornfield. Came back in and sat down, and I hadn't been seated less than a minute. And all of a sudden, these rocks appeared at the ceiling again, dropped to the floor, and they were the very same rocks that I had thrown out into the cornfield.
Wow!
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, how do you explain that? Like when that happened, what were your thoughts? Like, well, I mean, it's kind of a weird question, but
no, it's not. It's not. Well, I mean, I'll tell you what my thought was, and I'm not going to say this, over the radio, but my thought was, yeah. That was my first thought, and I mean, I was actually kind of gleeful. I was excited. I mean, here I was seeing something that I had only read about, and I was just like, I mean, it was just it's really hard to describe, but I mean, it was exciting, and a little bit scary, but more exciting than anything. I mean, it wasn't a situation where I was just like, ghost, run, and then run out of the house and never go back. Instead, it was just more of a just like, did I just see what I think I saw type of situation, and that's how I felt. Well, but then see. The next thing that I did was, and remember now, I could see everybody that was in the house from my viewpoint. So, I mean, it wasn't like these kids had somehow snuck up into the attic and had found a hole in the ceiling and were dropping these rocks down. And in fact, I went up into the attic immediately afterwards to check it out. And I mean, it wasn't a finished attic. It was full of insulation. And it would have been, I mean, there's nobody up there. And so, I mean, I have no idea, how anybody could have gotten to that area, because the only entranceway from the attic was from a door in the ceiling in the garage. And you would have had to have walked quite a distance because it was clear across the house in order to get to that point. Like I said, it was full of insulation, and you could not tell where the joists were to get to that location, and nor was there any hole in the ceiling as well that I could see. So I mean, it was just, I mean, it was just one of these situations that, while it was happening, I mean, I was dumbfounded, but I was just extremely excited that I was actually seeing this. And the odd thing about it is that after that incident, because I kept in contact with with these people. After that incident, the activity basically went away. There was a few more situations, mostly knocks on the wall, like raps, weird noises and things like that. But it was like that the energy had been used up doing this situation, and then that was it. Nothing ever, as far as I know, nothing ever happened again at that place.
Do you think there's a message in this, or there's something that you took from this happening?
I don't know. When it comes to especially poltergeist activity, it almost seems like the message is pay attention to me. When I've researched other, and you have to realize that there is a difference between, say, like poltergeist activity and, say, like a haunting. Hauntings, generally, people will see like an apparition. It'll like appear in the bedroom, or or walk down the stairs or something like that. Poltergeist activity is it's very active. I mean, there's always stuff going on, knocks on the wall, furniture being moved, stuff disappearing, very much a situation where it seems to be looking to be noticed. And I think that was what was going on here, that this was something that was wanting to be noticed. And once we noticed it, then that was it. It was like, okay, I'm done. And it slowly went away. Now, you have to remember that some of the theories regarding poltergeist activity is that somehow it involves somebody living in the house, whether it be, like a teenager or a child or an adult that is unhappy. And that somehow this unhappiness manifests itself through some form of telekinetic activity, almost like they have a split personality, and that this personality gains a life of its own and is able to manifest itself through physical means, but using some kind of abilities that we don't quite understand yet, and one of these abilities seems to be teleportation. So that it could very well be that one of the kids or even one of the adults in this house was unhappy with the situation, and who could blame them? I mean, it was an extremely sad situation, with both their parents being put into jail, and then these elderly people having to take in their grandchildren. I mean, this would create all kinds of unhappiness. And I mean that does seem to be one of the traditional starting points for this kind of phenomena.
Right. Yeah. How do you feel? Just a little research in that on the time travel of and how it's becoming a little bit more common in science. So what's happened to change his attitude, do you think?
Well, I think that I think that we have more of a I was going to say more of a better understanding of quantum physics, but that's really not the case, because I mean there hasn't really been much new in physics since like the 1930s. I think that you have an idea with physicists that they've become a little bit more open to all kinds of different concepts that seem to be associated with quantum physics, and a lot more of these physicists are willing to write papers about some of these ideas that at one time seemed to be, just wild and almost in the realm of science fiction. I mean, not only time travel, but the idea that that our universe is not the only universe. That there may be, like almost an infinite number of universes. But on top of that, not only would there be other universes, but that there could be parallel realities within our own universe. And as more and more research is being done on these principles of quantum physics, I think more and more physicists are starting to be accepting that this kind of stuff is possible. And of course, you also have like the Rolling Stone effect here, where you have one prominent scientist who acknowledges that this stuff could be possible, and then everybody else, feels a little bit more comfortable, admitting that they too have been doing this sort of research, along these lines. Back to time travel. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that most scientists and physicists, I mean, they wouldn't even try to tackle what time is. I mean, you had some of Einstein's theories, with in his theory of general relativity, but other than that, everybody else, if you would ask them what time was, they would say, don't ask me, go ask a philosopher. I mean, the concept of time seemed to be more of an idea within philosophy than something that could be scientifically tackled. And I think nowadays, especially as we're beginning to understand more and more how the universe works, with the study of subatomic atomic particles and some of the bizarre nature that they exhibit, I think more and more are getting comfortable with accepting the idea that that time is actually something that we can study, and with that the possibility that that time travel, at least into the future, is possible. And most most of them are saying now that I mean time travel into the future could be possible, but not the past. Well, that seems to be the caveat there. Future yes, past no.
Well, why not the past? Like what? You can't go back. So if you go in the future, can you come back then? And
well, that's it. Well, it could be just a matter of that their minds just haven't quite got there yet about the ability to going into the past. I mean, you have to consider that it's quite a jump to accept the fact that that possibly time travel to the future is possible, and that maybe in couple of decades or so, then they'll start saying, oh well, we're seeing evidence that going into the past is possible, and we're starting to see that now because there has been some really fascinating research done using subatomic particles that seem to indicate that the future can influence the past. That I can't even begin to tell you the science involved here, but some of the research seems to show, at least on the subatomic level, that subatomic particles have the ability, when influenced in the proper way, to actually travel into the past. Not far so far, a couple of seconds, or less, but at least on a subatomic level, it does seem to be possible if the research is being done properly, and that's the caveat there. If they are doing things the way properly, and that the results that they are getting are being interpreted correctly, this seems to be the case. But then again, now you have people who say that that we already have time travel, that this was something that was discovered, say, as far back as the late 1940s, or actually the middle 1940s, and that by the 1960s we had working time machines, and that we were sending people not only into the past but into the future, and also teleporting them to the moon and Mars and God knows where else.
Yeah. Do you really think there's any credibility to that, or?
Probably not. Probably not. Now, okay. Now, I'll say this. Now, I mean, I have not seen. I have not seen these time machines. I have not seen any time travelers. So, I mean, I can't go and say that, no, it's just absolutely impossible. I'm never going to be the guy who says that no, it's just absolutely impossible. I don't believe it, because I mean, I like to keep an open mind. The rational part of me, says no, probably not. But then again, who knows? I mean, and I'll tell you one thing. There's one gentleman, and I'm not going to say his name, but I mean, he's talked quite a bit about his involvement in supposedly one of these government time travel projects since he was a kid, and he appeared on one of these television shows, and he talked about how him and his dad. One of these laboratories that they worked out of, there was like a house that was nearby that they stayed in, and he took the film crew to this location, and they were standing around outside of this house, and talking, filming, and the people who lived in the house came out, and they're like, what the hell are you doing in my yard? And they started talking to them, and they hadn't lived in the house when this guy said that they had been staying there, like as a halfway house, but they had moved in, like shortly thereafter. And he described the interior of the house, how it used to be, where things were located, how the rooms were set up, and things like that. And the people, they were like, yeah, that was how the house looked before we renovated it.
Right.
It looked absolutely like that. So I don't know. I mean, this guy, I mean, obviously had some kind. Him and his father had some kind of connection. His father definitely worked for the government and for like a black project stuff. I mean, that has been acknowledged. Whether or not it was, as he was saying, like time travel and teleportation. But obviously, he had been in this house when he was a kid, so who knows?
Well, you never know.
That's right.
Maybe a UFO is a time machine.
Well, that's one of the things that that I like to speculate on. Because some aspects of the UFO phenomena do seem almost like time travel. Some of the contacts that people have had with the occupants that come out of UFOs, rather than acting like extraterrestrials, they almost act like people from the future, like time travelers. They'll tell these witnesses things that's going to happen to them in the future, where they're going to live in the future, what's going to happen to loved ones, jobs that they're going to have, things along those lines. Stuff that you wouldn't think that an extraterrestrial would know or even care about. Yet here these things, here these people coming out of these flying saucers seem to have almost an intimate knowledge of what's going to happen to these witnesses, in the future. So I mean, if you think about it, I mean, what a great way though if you were from a future era that developed time machines and you wanted to go into the past without influencing it directly, but you knew that it was going to be hard not to be seen. And you also knew from history that people were seeing unidentified flying objects and, what were reported to be extraterrestrials. Well, why not disguise yourself as that? Why not, if you do go back and you ran into somebody, you'd say, yeah, we're from Zeta Reticuli, and, and we're space brothers here to, to save you from yourselves,
Well, they got a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, it's I saw a cartoon not too long ago that said that the reason that the Titanic sank was because it was overloaded with all the time travelers who had come back to see why the Titanic sank.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it all, doesn't it? Well, it's about time that we kind of wrap it up here. It's certainly been real pleasant to talk to, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Oh, well, thank you.
And so would you like to do you have any things coming up? Are you doing any book signings or doing any talks or going to any events or anything that people can come see you at? Or
Well, I always want to mention my my website. I mean, I share it with Timothy Green Beckley of Global Communications. He's my publisher, and it's conspiracyjournal.com. And I'd mentioned this earlier in the show. I mean, I put out a free weekly newsletter with the same title, and it's you go to the website, you sign up for it, and it's absolutely free. It'll come to your email box every week, and it's just I have stringers all over this world that send me these great stories, and then I have to weed through all of them to get about 7 or 8 of them to put in each newsletter. But it's just like all the strange and weird news that they don't want you to know. But also, I mean, I'm currently working on a book with Tim Beckley and Sean Castile called UFO Repeaters. And it's about a number of different people throughout the ages who have had multiple UFO experiences, and why these particular people have these experiences, what it does to them throughout their lives, their changes in personality, how it affects their home life, that sort of thing. So, I mean, that's we expect that to be finished in a couple of months or so, and like all of our books, you'll be able to find that on Amazon.com.
Fantastic. Well, I've really enjoyed it, and hopefully we can do it again real soon.
Well, thank you very much. I had a great time, and I hope your listeners enjoyed it as well.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Well, good night. This has been a production of the Z-Talk Radio Network.
I'll be back.